thank you very much for coming today. My priority as leader of the NDP is to set out a positive agenda for change on the economy. We've had a government that's failed us utterly on the economy, the worst record on the economy of any government in my lifetime. 2% average economic growth compared to 3% under the NDP, 3% under the Social Credit Party. That's on an annual basis. It's a poor performance on the economy, and in that context as well, a growth in inequality. To present alternatives, including alternatives to ensure that resources in BC are processed in BC. Alternatives on public health care, where the difference between myself and Premier Clark could not be more stark. Differences on public education. The last time I debated with Christy Clark, she was a radio host and I was an MLA. She wanted to close more schools. I wanted to keep them open. I won that fight in the public realm, and I think there's a really stark difference on those issues. And on the environment, where, as you know, in one of her few concrete proposals during their leadership campaign, Ms. Clark proposed to overturn a federal environmental assessment on the Prosperity Mine. I think you've got to be pretty far to the right on environmental issues to be to the right of Stephen Harper. So there are real differences, but I'm going to be putting forward a positive agenda. People will be able to see the differences. We're going to campaign on that agenda, and we're going to win on that agenda. Now, it's going to be a busy few weeks. There's a federal election on, and the NDP is making great strides, and I'll be supporting NDP candidates across British Columbia this time. There's going to be a by-election in Vancouver Point Grey. We have an outstanding candidate in David Eby. I don't think there are very many people in Vancouver Point Grey who wouldn't want David Eby representing them if they needed help with the provincial government. He's an outstanding fighter for people, and I think he's going to be a great candidate in Vancouver Point Grey. So I'm going to be campaigning vigorously with David in that by-election. I'll be preparing our campaign, of course, to defeat the HST in a referendum. I'll be working hard on that issue to ensure that the people of British Columbia are not fooled again by the BC Liberal government. There isn't a major attempt, I expect a major attempt by the government to try and convince people that what's bad for them is good for them. And I think that people are going to reject that, but I'll be very much involved in that campaign. And finally, of course, next week there'll be a legislative session. And, you know, it's been a long time. 4 days since last June. And I think that one of the things I hope to do in politics is to rebuild people's trust in democratic institutions, to do what I say, to be positive, to put forward positive proposals, to say what they'll cost, and to respect the legislature of British Columbia. I think the BC Liberals, in so disrespecting the legislature, have in fact hurt all people in politics. And we're going to be running a legislative session that holds the government accountable and is also a forum for our positive proposals for change. And so we're going to see real differences. And I think that's positive in a democracy. I'm proud of our campaign. Just want to say finally that it's an extraordinary thing to win the leadership of the NDP. I've been a member of the party for 27 years. Since the CCF became the NDP, we've had great leaders, people like Bob Strachan from Vancouver Island, people like Dave Barrett, people like Tom Berger, Bob Skelly, Mike Harcourt, Glenn Clark, Joy McPhail, many, and of course my friend Carol James, who did an extraordinary job as leader of the NDP. It's an extraordinary thing. It was a close race, and it was a close race because we had great candidates run. Mike Farnworth and John Horgan and Dana Larson and Nicholas Simons, particularly John and Mike, were extraordinary candidates. It's no surprise to me that they had a lot of support because they're great people, great New Democrats, and great leaders in our party. So it's day one. We're feeling good. We're going to have I think a very positive caucus meeting today. I don't think the party comes out of this united, comes out of it determined, united to present an alternative to British Columbia, determined, united to win the HST referendum, determined, united to win the next election.
Adrian, you talked about the past leaders and the past premiers and so on. The problem for the New Democrats, as you have acknowledged and others have, is that the NDP does not have a winning track record in British Columbia. I mean, three wins in over these decades. How can you win an election against Christy Clark?
How can I win an election against Christy Clark? I'll tell you. First of all, people are tired of this discredited government. I mean, what have they done since the last election, since they last got a mandate from people, except introduce the HST? So first of all, we have a government that's out of gas, out of ideas. And you've seen that even since, I think, Premier Clark has taken over. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you do it by presenting positive alternatives that motivate people. 1.4 million people didn't vote in the last provincial election. And my plan, the reason I ran for leader, the commitment of our caucus, is to give those 1.4 million people something to vote for, something to believe in. I think, you know, the last time we won an election in 1996, we didn't have those kind of turnout problems. We've added 700,000 new registered non-voters in that time, and I think it's by appealing to them and by presenting a positive agenda that you win elections.